Have you ever witnessed a single act of courage that transformed not only one life, but an entire community? Imagine an ordinary day at your local park turning into a battleground for dignity, respect, and justice, where an elderly war veteran faces down a gang of unruly teens, only to reveal a past that defies expectations. Stay with me as we dive into the remarkable true story of Henry, a man many underestimated, and Sierra, a fearless young activist, whose unyielding stand against bullying sparked a movement that still resonates today. This isn't just a tale of conflict, it's a call to action for every one of us to stand up, speak out, and build bridges across generations. On what appeared to be a typical sunny afternoon, the park buzzed with the gentle hum of everyday life. Families gathered on picnic blankets, children's laughter intermingled with the distant chirp of birds, and the soft rustle of freshly mown grass filled the air. Seated on a well-worn wooden bench beneath a sprawling oak tree was Henry, a dignified, elderly gentleman whose calm presence belied a lifetime of experiences. Clad in a simple jacket and cap, he unfolded his newspaper with a measured grace, his eyes scanning the headlines as he sipped his lukewarm coffee. But beneath the surface of this serene setting, a storm was silently brewing. Across the park's entrance, a group of teenagers ambled with a swagger that reeked of entitlement and mischief. Their voices carried mocking energy, and among them, one boy in particular caught Henry's attention. Blake, a lanky teen with a sneer permanently etched on his face, stepped forward, his eyes locked on Henry's solitary figure. There was something predatory in Blake's gaze, a hunger for power that made Henry's heart tighten. For a moment, as the crunch of gravel under the teen's sneakers drew nearer, time itself seemed to slow down. Henry tried to focus on the printed words in his newspaper, but the letters blurred as an uneasy premonition crept over him. Memories of long-ago battles and moments of life-and-death decisions stirred quietly within his mind. In his youth, Henry had served his country with unwavering resolve, and though the scars of war had faded from his face, they still echoed in the steady cadence of his heartbeat. Today, however, his battlefield was not one of enemy fire or distant battlefields, it was right here, in the peaceful park he had come to cherish. Without a word, the group halted just a few feet away from Henry's bench. The air turned thick with tension as the scent of artificial fruit wafted in from nearby vape smoke, mingling with the natural aroma of the park. For a heartbeat, silence reigned before Blake's voice sliced through it like a sharpened knife. "Hey, old-timer, isn't it past your bedtime?" Blake jeered, his tone dripping with scorn. At that moment, Henry's eyes, deep brown and etched with the wisdom of years, hardened with a quiet determination. His jaw tightened imperceptibly, and for a split second, the man before us seemed to transform. Gone was the frail figure of an aging veteran, in his place stood a man who had weathered storms of unimaginable fury and fear. With deliberate calm, Henry folded his newspaper, setting it aside as if discarding a trivial distraction. He lifted his gaze to meet Blake's mocking eyes, a silent challenge passing between them. The park around them seemed to hold its breath. Each onlooker, families, joggers, and even the birds, watched with bated anticipation. In that suspended moment, Henry's steady gaze conveyed not anger, but a resolute determination forged by decades of discipline and sacrifice. The teenager's confidence wavered ever so slightly as they registered that this confrontation was unlike any ordinary encounter. Henry's presence exuded a power that transcended his physical age, a quiet strength born of battles fought in far darker times. Blake, never one to be easily cowed, broke the silence with another barb, his voice laced with condescension. "What's the matter, old man? Cat got your tongue?" The words elicited a ripple of snickers from his cronies, each insult designed to chip away at Henry's composure. Inside, Henry felt a storm of memories rise, a muddy trench in a far-off land, the acrid stench of gunpowder, and the deafening roar of distant explosions. For a moment, his mind was awash with the duality of his existence, the tender vulnerability of an elderly man juxtaposed with the indomitable spirit of a soldier. His hands, though trembling slightly, gripped the edge of the bench as he fought to restrain the impulse to lash out. Each insult, each taunt, was a reminder of battles past and the scars they had left behind. As the verbal assault intensified, mocking comments about his age, his race, even the slight tremor in his hands, a palpable shift occurred within Henry. The fear that had gnawed at him began to dissipate, replaced by the flicker of an old, familiar resolve. Slowly, with a measured deliberateness that belied his years, Henry pushed himself to his feet. His movements were stiff but imbued with an undeniable dignity, as if each step was a reaffirmation of his worth. Rising to his full height, he fixed his gaze on each of the jeering faces, silently daring them to continue their cruelty. Before any further insult could be hurled, a small, quivering voice broke through the charged atmosphere. "Leave him alone." The cry came from Sierra, a young woman whose eyes blazed with defiance and empathy. Standing at the edge of the circle, Sierra's stance was resolute, her presence a beacon of courage amid the darkening mood. Her words sliced through the tension like a clarion call for justice. Blake's face contorted in a mixture of anger and disbelief as he turned to face this unexpected challenger. "Mind your own business," he snarled, taking a menacing step forward. But Sierra stood her ground, her fists clenched at her sides as she retorted, "This is my business. I live in this community too." Her words resonated not as mere defiance but as a declaration of solidarity, a declaration that bullying and cruelty had no place here. For a long, charged moment, the park held its breath. The jeering faces of Blake's gang, once full of bravado, softened as they registered the unyielding spirit of Sierra's intervention. Henry, for his part, felt a surge of gratitude mingled with concern. He admired the girl's courage, even as a part of him worried for her safety. Yet, in that instant, a powerful alliance was forged, a silent understanding that together, they could confront and challenge the cruelty that threatened their sanctuary. As Sierra's words echoed, Blake's hand disappeared into his jacket pocket. The atmosphere shifted palpably when he produced a small metallic object, a BB gun that gleamed dangerously in the afternoon sun. The mood in the park darkened, and an undercurrent of fear snaked its way through the assembled crowd. The sight of the weapon transformed the confrontation into something far more perilous, shifting the stakes from verbal jeering to the threat of real harm. Henry's heart pounded in his chest, each beat a deafening reminder of the gravity of the situation. His military instincts surged to the forefront as he assessed the threat with the precision of a seasoned soldier. The weight of his cane, a long, gnarled relic that had served him well in times of need, suddenly seemed reassuring. In that critical moment, it was not merely a walking aid, but a symbol of resilience and a potential weapon against injustice. Blake's sneer grew bolder as he brandished the BB gun with an unsettling casualness. "Maybe today we'll see if you can dodge as well as you did back in the war," he taunted, stepping closer with a dangerous glint in his eye. The tension in the park mounted, the air thick with the promise of impending conflict. Yet, Henry's voice remained calm, low, and steady as he addressed Blake. "You're playing a dangerous game, one you don't understand. This isn't a game, put it down before someone gets hurt." For a fleeting moment, the world seemed to slow as the two adversaries locked eyes. Blake's hand hesitated near the trigger, but his arrogance compelled him to push forward. At that critical juncture, Henry acted with a speed that belied his age. With a swift, practiced motion, he raised his cane as if it were an extension of his very arm. The sudden movement caught Blake off guard, causing him to stumble backwards. In the ensuing scuffle, Henry's cane struck Blake's wrist with precise force, sending the BB gun clattering to the ground, where it skittered across the pavement and came to rest against a nearby tree. For several long seconds, silence reigned. Blake's gang stared at Henry in stunned disbelief, their previous bravado melting away in the face of his unexpected skill and unwavering resolve. Blake's face, once twisted in confidence, now burned with humiliation and rage as he cradled his injured wrist. "This isn't over," he spat, his voice quivering with a blend of anger and fear. With their leader's defiance now evident, the other teens began to retreat, their earlier confidence dissipating like mist in the morning sun. Henry exhaled a slow, measured breath, relief mingling with the steely awareness that this confrontation was only a prelude to a larger battle. As the immediate threat subsided, he noticed a ripple of whispers among the onlookers, a growing murmur of support and curiosity. The park, once a sanctuary of simple joys, now pulsed with the charged energy of change. Yet, amid the residual tension, a new voice emerged, a voice that would prove to be a catalyst for something much greater. Sierra, still standing at the edge of the unfolding drama, moved purposefully toward Henry. Her expression softened into one of genuine concern as she asked, "Are you okay, sir?" Her voice, though laced with youthful determination, carried the weight of compassion and respect. Henry managed a small, grateful smile, replying in a tone both gruff and warm, "Thanks to you, I'm all right." In that brief exchange, an unspoken understanding passed between the two, a recognition that this was not merely an isolated incident, but the spark that could ignite lasting change. The encounter had left an indelible mark on both Henry and Sierra. As they retreated from the immediate scene of conflict, they began to talk in hushed, determined tones, sharing stories and insights that spanned generations. Henry recounted tales of his military service, the hardships and the moments of triumph that defined his younger years. Sierra listened intently, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and empathy, as she absorbed every detail of a life that had seen the extremes of human experience. In that exchange, the generational gap between them began to narrow, replaced by a shared commitment to stand up against injustice and cruelty. Realizing that this was more than a personal confrontation, it was a clarion call for community unity, Henry and Sierra quickly hatched a plan. They would use the power of digital media to expose the bullies' actions and rally support for victims of disrespect and abuse. Sierra, with her smartphone clutched tightly in hand, explained how she had recorded every moment of the altercation. "I've got everything on video," she said, her voice firm yet passionate. "Just imagine how your parents or even the police will react when they see this." Her words carried the promise of accountability, a reminder that in today's digital age, truth cannot remain hidden for long. As the last of the bullies retreated, the park began to fill with an undercurrent of hope. Neighbors started to gather, their expressions a mix of shock and support. Questions flew through the air, and soon, bystanders were recording the aftermath on their own devices. Henry stood at the center of it all, a living testament to courage and resilience. In that moment, he was more than just an elderly man defending himself, he was a symbol of the dignity and strength that comes from never backing down in the face of injustice. The video of the confrontation spread like wildfire across social media, its raw depiction of the incident capturing hearts and sparking conversations nationwide. Comments poured in from viewers of all ages, expressing outrage at the bullying and admiration for Henry's bravery. The digital backlash forced even those who had once turned a blind eye to the problem to confront it head-on. Hashtags like #RespectOurSeniors began to trend, as communities united in a collective vow to ensure that every elder would be treated with the dignity they deserved. Over the following days, the impact of the video became unmistakable. Local news vans gathered outside the park, reporters clamoring for interviews with the man who had stood up to injustice. Community groups reached out to Henry, inviting him to speak at meetings and rallies. Even veteran organizations, many of which had long felt marginalized, saw in his actions a reflection of their own struggles for recognition and respect. Henry's phone buzzed incessantly with calls from old comrades, friends, and even strangers who wanted to offer their support. Meanwhile, Sierra found herself thrust into a role she had never anticipated. Her video had not only captured a moment of raw courage but had also ignited a movement. Messages from schools, local organizations, and media outlets began to flood in, each one urging her to continue using her platform to effect positive change. Although the sudden attention was overwhelming, Sierra's resolve only grew stronger. She organized online discussions, led tech workshops for seniors, and collaborated with community leaders to brainstorm innovative ways to bridge the gap between generations. Every notification on her phone was a reminder that one small act of digital defiance could spark a revolution of empathy and respect. Yet, not everyone was ready to accept this new wave of change. In a twist that underscored the deep-seated divisions within the community, Blake and his gang reappeared the very next morning. Determined to reclaim their lost power, they stalked back to the park, their eyes searching for Henry, the man who had dared to defy them. Seated once again on his usual bench, Henry appeared calm, his exterior a mask that concealed the swirling storm of anticipation within. Unbeknownst to him, Sierra was lurking nearby, phone at the ready, prepared to document every moment of this renewed confrontation. As Blake and his cronies formed a loose semicircle around the bench, their collective message was clear: there would be no escape, no respite from their bullying. Blake's smirk widened as he sauntered closer, his voice dripping with derision. "Look who's back for more," he drawled, his tone mocking as he recalled their previous encounter. The tension in the park reached a fever pitch as the teens encircled Henry once again, their eyes burning with a mix of challenge and uncertainty. Henry's mind flashed back to battlefields long past, the grit of combat, the fear, and the indomitable will to survive. With a slow, deliberate rise, he stood from his bench, his cane firmly planted on the ground. His eyes locked onto Blake's, and his voice, calm and resolute, carried a quiet authority. "You're playing a dangerous game, son," he said, each word measured and imbued with the weight of decades of experience. "I've faced threats far worse than you, and I'm not afraid to stand my ground." Blake's confidence wavered for just a moment, his bravado challenged by the steely determination in Henry's eyes. Yet, his pride would not allow him to back down easily. With a scornful laugh, he drew the BB gun once more, its metallic surface reflecting the harsh afternoon light. "Maybe today you'll see if you can dodge as well as you did back in the war," he taunted, inching closer as if to assert his dominance through sheer intimidation. At that critical moment, Sierra's phone vibrated with the buzz of incoming notifications. The video was going viral again, its digital momentum spreading far beyond the confines of the park. Sensing the tide turning, Henry moved with the precision of a man who had spent a lifetime preparing for moments exactly like this. His cane, an extension of his unwavering resolve, became his shield and his statement. With one swift, decisive motion, he swept the cane out toward Blake, catching the teen off balance and disarming him once more. The BB gun clattered to the ground, a silent testament to the futility of Blake's threats. As Blake's face flushed with a mix of humiliation and rage, the assembled onlookers, neighbors, passers-by, and even the teenagers who had once been complicit, watched in stunned silence. Blake's final defiant cry, "This isn't over," echoed briefly before he and his gang retreated, their earlier menace now dissolved into a haze of defeated murmurs. The park, which had transformed from a haven of cruelty into a stage for valor, now stood as a symbol of what could be achieved when courage met conviction. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Henry and Sierra found themselves surrounded by a growing crowd of curious and concerned citizens. Phones were raised in unison, capturing every detail of the scene, while whispers of admiration and support rippled through the gathering. "Henry, ever." The reluctant hero addressed the crowd with a voice that trembled only slightly, each word a reflection of a lifetime of hardship and resilience. "I never set out to be a hero," he confessed, his tone soft yet unwavering, "but I realize that silence only serves to embolden those who would do us harm. We must stand together, with dignity and respect, to protect what is right." Sierra, her eyes alight with the fire of newfound purpose, joined in the conversation. "Today, we showed that every act of bravery matters," she declared, her voice ringing clear across the park. "We have the tools, our voices, our cameras, our hearts, to hold bullies accountable and to build a community where everyone, no matter their age, is treated with the respect they deserve." Her words were not merely a recitation of facts, they were a rallying cry, an invitation to each person present to be part of the change that was unfolding. In the days that followed, the impact of that fateful confrontation rippled throughout the community. Local businesses, inspired by the events at the park, began to display signs proclaiming "No tolerance for elder abuse," and schools organized assemblies to address the scourge of bullying. The mayor's office even announced plans for a town hall meeting to discuss public safety and the importance of community values. Social media exploded with stories of personal experiences, tales of elders who had been overlooked, of families who had struggled with the injustices of ageism, and each comment, each share, was a testament to the power of a single courageous act to inspire widespread change. Meanwhile, the repercussions for Blake and his cohorts were swift and unforgiving. In the sterile confines of the school principal's office, Blake sat slumped in a chair, his face a mask of regret and apprehension. Across from him, his parents, stern and visibly disappointed, listened as the principal outlined the disciplinary measures, suspension, community service, mandatory counseling, and even a public apology to Henry and the community at large. Blake's father, his voice tinged with anger and sorrow, asked, "We raised you better than this. What were you thinking?" The word stung as much as any physical blow, and Blake's eyes, fixed on his worn sneakers, betrayed the realization that his actions had consequences far beyond the fleeting thrill of misbehavior. For Henry and Sierra, however, the journey was only just beginning. Their unexpected alliance had grown into a full-blown grassroots movement, a digital and physical revolution against the intolerance and disrespect that had long festered in their community. Henry, once resigned to a quiet life on the fringes, found himself invited to speak at community centers, veteran groups, and even local schools. His recounting of wartime experiences, interwoven with lessons on dignity and resilience, struck a chord with audiences of all ages. Every story he shared, every memory he revived, served as a bridge connecting generations that had grown apart. Sierra, buoyed by the overwhelming support from viewers and neighbors alike, began to harness her social media prowess to further the cause. She created a campaign dubbed Bridges Across Time, a call for intergenerational dialogue and unity. Using her smartphone as both a tool and a symbol, she organized video conferences, community discussions, and even tech workshops to help seniors navigate the digital age. Her campaign not only highlighted the importance of respecting one's elders but also showcased how the blend of modern technology and time-honored values could reshape a community for the better. One crisp morning, as the sun began to rise and cast long, golden rays across the newly transformed park, Henry and Sierra met to plan their next steps. They envisioned a day, a community day, that would celebrate the unity of all generations. "In my day, we'd have a parade to show our solidarity," Henry mused with a nostalgic chuckle, his eyes twinkling with memories of simpler times. Sierra, ever the innovator, countered with enthusiasm, "Maybe a parade is exactly what we need, a blend of old traditions and new ideas to remind everyone of the values we share." Together, they envisioned an event that would feature live streaming, interactive workshops, and traditional festivities, a day where every voice, from the youngest child to the wisest elder, would be heard. The planning was meticulous and heartfelt. Over the following weeks, community centers buzzed with activity. Local schools collaborated with senior centers, organizing intergenerational events where elders could share their life stories while students documented their experiences for digital archives. Small businesses offered discounts to seniors, and neighborhood associations hosted forums on community safety and respect. What had begun as a single act of defiance had blossomed into a movement that touched every corner of the town. As the day of the Bridges Across Time event drew near, the park, once marred by the scars of bullying, underwent a transformation. A state-of-the-art playground was erected, designed with accessibility in mind so that children of all abilities could play together. Benches were painted in bright, inviting colors, and new pathways were laid out to encourage people of all ages to mingle and share stories. The park was no longer just a backdrop for everyday life, it had become a living, breathing symbol of community strength and intergenerational solidarity. On the day of the event, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation and hope. Crowds of all ages gathered under the bright blue sky, their faces lit up with smiles and genuine curiosity. Henry, now widely regarded as a local hero, took center stage at a makeshift podium, his once humble presence now commanding the attention of an entire community. Standing before a sea of attentive faces, he began to speak, his voice steady and resonant, carrying the weight of decades of unspoken pain, yet tempered by the promise of a better tomorrow. "I never wanted to be a hero," Henry admitted, his eyes scanning the crowd, "but today, standing here, I realize that silence only protects those who wish to do us harm. We must stand up for one another, for every elder who has been made to feel invisible, for every young person whose voice is drowned out by the noise of injustice." His words, delivered with a sincerity that stirred even the most skeptical hearts, elicited a wave of applause and cheers from the gathered crowd. In that moment, the park was more than just a physical space, it was a sanctuary of hope and unity, where the bridges between generations were being rebuilt with every word spoken and every hand shaken. As Henry's speech drew to a close, a palpable silence fell over the audience, a silence that was soon replaced by a thunderous ovation. People rose to their feet, their clapping and cheers a resounding affirmation of the change that had taken root in their hearts. In the midst of that celebration, Sierra stepped forward, her eyes shining with determination and pride. "This is just the beginning," she declared, addressing the crowd directly. "We have the power to shape our community, to ensure that every act of disrespect is met with compassion and courage. Let us continue to build bridges, to listen, and to learn from one another." Her words, simple yet profound, reinforced the belief that change was not only possible, it was already happening. In the weeks and months that followed, the movement that Henry and Sierra had sparked continued to grow. The Bridges Across Time campaign inspired similar initiatives in neighboring towns, each one a testament to the enduring power of unity. Local news outlets chronicled the evolution of the community, capturing stories of transformed lives and renewed hope. Senior citizens who had long felt isolated now found themselves at the heart of vibrant discussions, sharing their wisdom and experiences with eager, respectful audiences. Young people, inspired by the courage of those who had come before them, organized volunteer efforts and mentorship programs that bridged the gap between past and present. One memorable afternoon, as the community center prepared to unveil its newly renovated space, a hub of learning, creativity, and intergenerational exchange, Henry and Sierra were invited to the grand opening. The center, aptly named Unity Hall, stood as a beacon of progress and reconciliation, its walls adorned with murals depicting scenes of diverse generations working together. As cameras flashed and reporters jostled for a glimpse of the duo who had catalyzed this transformation, Henry's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization that his once quiet life had become a cornerstone for change. Surrounded by handshakes, warm embraces, and expressions of gratitude from neighbors and community leaders alike, Henry listened as the mayor stepped forward to offer words of commendation. "Today, we celebrate not just a building, but the spirit of unity that it represents," the mayor proclaimed, her voice thick with emotion. "Henry, your courage has shown us that no matter our age, every voice matters, and every act of bravery can spark a revolution. Thank you for reminding us of the true meaning of respect and community." The room erupted in applause once again, and in that moment, Henry realized that his battle was not fought with weapons or anger, but with dignity, resilience, and the unwavering power of a united community. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the festivities began to wind down, Henry and Sierra found a quiet moment together on the steps of Unity Hall. The air was cool, and the soft glow of streetlights bathed the scene in a gentle luminescence. Sierra looked up at Henry, her eyes reflecting both exhaustion and an unyielding spark of hope. "I never imagined that one day a single act of defiance would lead to all of this," she said softly. "You've shown me that bravery isn't measured by physical strength, but by the heart and the will to stand up for what's right. Henry placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, a smile tugging at the corners of his weathered face. "It's not about being a hero, Sierra," he replied, his voice quiet yet resolute. "It's about understanding that our stories, no matter how difficult, have the power to change the world." Before they parted ways that night, Henry and Sierra made a promise to each other and to their community, to continue building bridges across time, to ensure that every voice, young and old, would be heard, and to never let the darkness of disrespect and cruelty overshadow the light of unity and compassion. If you've been moved by this story of resilience, unity, and the transformative power of standing up for what's right, then you know that every single one of us has the strength to spark change. Let Henry and Sierra's journey remind you that no act of courage is ever in vain. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share how you think one brave act can inspire an entire community. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that challenge the status quo and celebrate the spirit of true heroes. Together, we can build a future where respect and compassion lead the way. Thank you for joining us on this unforgettable journey. Remember, change begins with you, and your voice matters more than you know. Stay inspired, stay courageous, and keep building bridges across time.